Hello, good evening. How are you? It's just gone 9 o'clock here in Portstewart in Northern Ireland, and I hope you're staying safe and well wherever you are in the world this evening. And as you know, I've been reading from my memoirs during lockdown here in Northern Ireland. And as it so happens, just as we're starting to come out of lockdown slowly but surely, I'm actually coming to the end of the third book in my coming of age trilogy, that which is known as All Grown Up, What Bread Boy Did at University. And this evening we're up to chapter 17, would you believe? And this is an important chapter because this tells the story of the first time ever I went to visit the lovely Leslie and meet her parents up the country. This is a really important chapter. Didn't entirely go according to plan, as you are about to hear, but I'm going to read all about that shortly. So as usual, if you want to say hello, just leave me a wee comment, and I'll stop in the middle for a break and I'll say hello to you. So this is chapter 17 of All Grown Up. Go wild in the country. Balaki sounded like a fascinating place, so it did. Of course, it wasn't Monte Carlo or Gallifrey, but I was enthralled by detailed accounts of Girls' Brigade displays and IRA marches, Church of Ireland flower festivals, and an ancient haunted bawn. There was talk of Seamus Heaney, mad dog, ponies, and a deserted church in the middle of a loch, accessible only at the height of summer. On top of all that, there was the exciting goings on in Mrs. Steen's drapery shop and the juicy gossip from Green's grocers, which made the ups and downs of the Sugdens and Emmerdale Farm look positively boring. The more I listened to Leslie talking about the wonders of Balachi, the more I wanted to go on an adventure up the country. I received an official invitation to visit Balachi one weekend when I needed a break from rigorous film production. This wasn't simply my first experience of the intriguing South Derry village. It was to be my first introduction to Leslie's parents, or Mummy and Daddy, as she called them. Leslie was an only child, so she talked about her parents and her extended family a lot. Even though we had yet to meet, I felt as if I already knew all her cousins in Mahara and Macrofelt, right down to the price tag on the latest outfit they'd bought in Gogay and Ballymena. Balachi sounded so different from Belfast, and so far away from my native Upper Shankill that when we arranged the date for my first visit, I felt like I was Alan Wicker from Wicker's World on UTV, about to go on a great adventure to see fascinating people and exotic places hidden from the rest of the world. Geographically, I was aware only that Balachi was somewhere north of Glengormley, until Leslie pointed it out to me on a map. Sure, you boys from Belfast think the world ends at Glengormley, she said. You've no idea. Balachi was near the top of Lough Neagh and close to Tombridge, where my father used to fish for eels in green waders before the Troubles. My big brother had Begsley the Green Simca for some football, rugby, or cricket match where he could show off his brilliance with balls. And although I was sure he had done this deliberately just to sicken me, I was not altogether disappointed at being unable to display our humble family car to Leslie's folks. They had three cars between them, one for Mummy, one for Daddy, and one for Leslie. And every single one of their cars was bigger, more expensive, and less rusty than the Green Dream Machine. Although Leslie was largely unfamiliar with the concept of public transport, she phoned the bus station in Belfast to find out the details of the journey for me. She provided me with clear instructions on where to catch the blue and white Ulster bus to Balachi, how much the ticket would cost, and where to disembark on the Tomb Road. There she would pick me up in the Renault 5 and transport me the final few miles to the enchanted village itself. Alan Wicker usually travelled on a Concorde, but I was happy enough to get an Ulster bus to Balachi. My main experience of this particular mode of public transport had been watching Ulster buses burning on Good Evening Ulster. For as long as I could remember, the paramilitaries had been burning buses to free Ireland or keep Ulster British, or simply to show how upset they were by the latest political development. I felt sorry for all the bus drivers who must have been very bad with their nerves after so many hijackings. When the day of my journey arrived, I made sure I was on time for the bus and bought a one-way ticket to Balachi. I had learned from my mistake on the 12th of February 1982 when I missed the train to Coleraine and almost ruined my life. This was a similarly important appointment, though I hoped Leslie's parents weren't going to subject me to a formal interview. As Leslie was an only child, I knew her mother and father would have very high standards for her. What did they think about their only daughter going out with a wee lad from up the Shankill? Of course, there were plenty of people from up the Shankill who had come up in the world, such as Norman Whiteside, who played for Manchester United. Nonetheless, I was certain Leslie's parents would have been much happier if Leslie had been doing a line with someone like Aaron Ward, whose father was a dentist. And there was no way in a million years that I would ever play for Manchester United. To quote my big brother, our Tony couldn't kick back doors. I knew the Evanses were good Presbyterians, so I clung to the hope that me being a good living Sunday school teacher in White Rock Orange Hall might compensate for my humble origins. As I travelled up the motorway into lands well beyond Glengormley, I fretted that Leslie's wider family might not accept me, as I had never once bought an outfit in Anderson Macaulay's in my life. Leslie's budget for one Gloria Vanderbilt outfit was equal to my annual budget for John Fraser's. I contemplated pretending that my father was actually Mr. Macaulay himself and that he worked with Mr. Anderson in our shop in Royal Avenue. But I knew my lie would be exposed if anyone took the time to compare the spelling of our surnames. The Ulster bus crossed the bridge with the Irish tricolour flags and IRA graffiti at Toome, and then past the enormous fortified police station with scorch marks on the security gates from the rocket attacks. As I admired this lovely scenery, I worried about all the stupid things I might say in front of Leslie's parents that would deem me an inappropriate boyfriend. Finally, I reminded myself to say all my pleases and thank yous and sorries to prove that I was dead well brought up and educated and all. As the bus approached what I believed to be the correct bus stop, I spotted the blue Renault 5 parked at the side of the road, and I could see Leslie using her rear view mirror to fix her hair and apply fresh red lipstick. I appreciated that she wanted to look nice for me, although the lipstick was a bit of a nuisance when it rubbed off on my lips and I had to wipe it off with a hanky or the sleeve of my best Simon Le Bon blouse. I leapt up from my seat, wobbling slightly with the weight of the sports bag containing my jammies, a wash bag and a Good News Bible, and I pressed the button to inform the driver that I wished to disembark. Being an inexperienced passenger, I had left this quite late, and the bus driver scowled at me and shook his head. But I forgave him because he was probably bad with his nerves due to all the hijackings. I jumped out of the bus and landed in a shock, splashing mud all over my suede ankle boots, which I had brushed especially for the occasion. I inhaled the scent of cow's clap and slurry, and as I exhaled, I knew I had finally arrived up the country. So I'll tell you what happened next in a minute, but let's say hello to who you're saying hello to tonight. Hello, Anne. How you doing? Looks like it's chilly tonight, she says. I made it. Oh, better late than never. Hi, Helen Stewart. Good to have you along. Helen, you remember these days well, I know. I'm still on Bread Boy, says Sam Thompson. We'll catch up soon. Yeah, well, I'm putting them all on my YouTube channel. After I've done all the Facebook Live ones, so all three books will eventually be on uh, Paperboy Belfast, which is the name of my YouTube channel. Hiya, says Donna Turner. Good to have you, Donna. Regular. Hi, Alan McLean. Another regular. Good evening, Susan. Wilgar never misses. And Angela and Keith Montgomery, always here. Good to have you along again. Me again, says Norma Fleming. Hi, how are you? Hello again, Sadie Hannah and Jim Poole. All the regulars are here tonight. Sent my father the series, says Kenneth Glenville. He's itching for Belfast Gate now. Very good. Love hearing that. Hi, hello again, Patricia Higgins from Brompton, Ontario, Canada. Evening, Evelyn Brown. Been looking forward to this chapter, says Susan Craig. Wait till you hear what happens next. Morning, big brother Nigel in Oz. Oh, yes, that's Nigel. Evening, Tony, says Gail Reese. Listening to Paperboy again as well. Still funny. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Susan says, received email today about Bread Boy, the musical, being cancelled. Yeah, unfortunately, the theatre is closed now till the end of the year. So Bread Boy, the musical, has been postponed to next year. Evening, Tony says, Anne Kirk. Loved last night's reading. Funny, couldn't stop laughing at your granny. She was a character, but it was sad as well, wasn't it? We'll miss you reading each night at 9 p.m. Thanks for giving us your time to entertain us during lockdown. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you, Anne. Helen Stewart says, you told me your dad was Mr. Macaulay. There you see. Now that's confirming that my head was full of sweetie mice when I was 18 years old in Coleraine. Good evening, Marlene Williamson. Hello again from Southern California, Marty Macaulay. Good to have you, Marty. Betty O'Riordan, another regular. Good evening. Hi, Neve Sahafian. Shuck. Is that a new word, Anne? On time tonight, Debbie. Great to have you. Hi, Norma Harrison. Aline Bonner, didn't get to listen to last night's until today. I wonder if we're related. Your maiden name was Taylor. Well, you see, my mother's a Taylor. So, yeah, Taylor from the Donegal Road. Alan McLean says, we'll be doing a reunion in 2025 with all these regulars. Now Susan says, yeah, Bread Boy's postponed. Do you know, I've just remembered somebody sent me a wee message to say hello to someone specifically tonight. And yeah, so Patricia Maguire said, hi Tony, any chance you could give a shout out to Big Alex from Brones Court and Carryduff? And she says she was chatting with Alex about my work, and every day that you go in, she goes into work, he asks about the next episode. So Alex, what about you? I hope you're enjoying this. And let's see, and Orla O'Sullivan, lovely to have you along, the O'Sullivans. I hope you're all doing well there. So anyway, this is what happened next once I went up the country. Leslie welcomed me with a red lipstick kiss and one of her perfect smiles. She was obviously very excited. Leslie was excited most of the time, but today she was even more excited than usual as she talked me through her detailed plans for the day. After I met her parents and her cousins, we would visit the historic Balachi Bawn, which was across the road from her house, and Cuddy's department store in Magherafelt, which had been bombed a few times and sold lovely clothes. Leslie drove us slightly too fast down a winding country road, snugly framed by shocks and hedges. Look at all the gorgeous wee lambsies, she said, as we passed fields full of sheep. Within 5 minutes, I could see the sign announcing our arrival in the beguiling village of Balachi. That's our church, and there's the hall for the GB, and there's the church for the services. The railings need painted, and you've no idea. And Mommy's in the choir, and she's the captain of the GB, and sometimes she plays the organ, and she counts the money, and she never stops, and you've no idea. And that's the RUC station. It used to be a big manor house until the police took it over, and there's Mrs. Steens' shop, and down there is Greens's and the Masonic Hall on the corner. I thought it strange that, in spite of the fact that everything around me was quaint, rural, and slightly run down, the RUC station for this wee village was nearly as big as the heavily fortified police station at Springmartin, near where I lived, and that was situated on the West Belfast Peace Line. Is this the Peace Line? I asked. Ugh, don't be stupid. We don't have peace lines up the country. We all live together in the one village here, said Leslie. That's great, I said. So everyone gets on well up here in spite of the troubles and all. Well, I wouldn't say that now. We've had more than our fair share of bombs and shootings here too. The troubles isn't all about the Falls and Shankill, you know. One night they blew up half of Ballachy. There was hardly a window left in the village. Our greenhouse was shattered. You've no idea. But how can the two sides live together in the same village if all that's going on? That would be like the Falls and the Shankill being all mixed with no peace walls. Ballachy's a Republican village and we're the minority. And it's not just IRA Republicans, it's the real extreme ones round here, the INLA. They kill each other when they're not killing soldiers and policemen and Protestants. It had never occurred to me that Catholics and Protestants could live together in such close proximity, apart from up the Malone Road, where they were too posh to fight. Sure, Mad Dog grew up in the house next door to us, Leslie said casually. What? Mad Dog that shot all those poor people in that wee church in Darkley? Yes, his sister was my best friend when we were growing up. What? I was an only child and they were a big family, so I played with all the kids next door. This was a revelation. Leslie lived beside real live Republicans and spoke to them and was even friends with some of them. It seemed that in Ballachy it was normal for Presbyterians to live right next door to the INLA. This brought new meaning to the phrase, love thy neighbour. Everyone knows who tried to shoot who and who blew up the village and who killed who, she said. You've no idea. On this occasion, Leslie's catchphrase was true. I had absolutely no idea what this would be like. I was friends with Marty Mullen and I was certain he was a Republican, but I didn't think it actually killed anyone, at least not yet. How could you even look at your neighbours if you knew your side had tried to kill them or they had tried to kill you? I asked. Leslie shrugged her shoulders. That's Ballachy, she said, as if this was the most natural behaviour in the world. Did you ever try to argue with the Republicans or ask them to stop killing us? I asked. Yes, I had a big debate with Boomer one day. Boomer? I understand them, you know, she says. I've seen the way the army treat them. Anyway, they're a bit brainwashed. Everything's black and white. So I don't think Boomer listened to me. He just sees me as the wee privileged Protestant girl next door that hasn't a clue about the armed struggle. Now we were in her natural habitat. My views of Leslie were changing with every passing minute. I'd always thought she was just a lovely big girl from up the country with nice clothes from Anderson Macaulay's and her own car. But now I was discovering that she had actually argued with terrorists and asked them to lay down their weapons. I had been a committed pacifist all my life and I had never done anything remotely as brave as this. Although I did once manage to persuade Titch McCracken to stop throwing shoplifted Marlies from the mace over the peace wall. This is our house here, Leslie said, turning off the main street and driving down a long lane with trees and bushes and more heathers than Portadown. We arrived at the rear of a large detached house with a patio on one side and stables, outhouses and an orchard on the other. A door opened and a middle-aged couple emerged. The man was very tall and thin, with dark slicked back hair, and the lady was well dressed, with big glasses, a lovely hairdo, and a friendly smile. That's Mummy, said Leslie excitedly. Well, welcome to Ballachy, said Mummy. I walked forward and shook Mummy's hand, and then shook Daddy's hand, which was so big it made mine feel like the hand of a child. Thank you, I said politely. Come on into the kitchen. The kettle's on, Mummy said, leading us into one of the biggest kitchens I had ever seen in my life. There were hundreds of red cabinets and still room for a table and chairs in the middle. You sit there, Tony, said Mummy. Leslie, Daddy and I sat around the smoked glass table, which was as impressive as any I had ever seen, in the window of Gillespie and Wilson's on the Shankill Road, while Mummy moved around the kitchen like a bee, buzzing from flower to flower, preparing our wee cup of tea. She placed in the centre of the table one of her Himalayan pavlovas, and my mouth began to water instantly. Then she surrounded the pavlova with a series of smaller plates containing geometrically perfect caramel squares. Freshly baked fruit scones with butter, jam, and a dollop of fresh cream, and a plate of chocolate biscuits from a good tin, rather than the yellow pack chocolate digestives which students lived on. I just thought I'd make you a wee snack before dinner, Mummy explained, as she poured the tea into proper china cups with saucers, which rested on proper placemats with pictures of fox hunting. Would you like a piece of pavlova? She asked. Yes, please, thank you, I replied. Once we began eating and drinking, everyone relaxed into the conversation. We talked about how long it took to get here on the bus, when the Bawn across the road was built, how I was getting on in university, what a lovely kitchen this was, and it's terrible all that's going on in Northern Ireland, so it isn't sure. It's a minority on both sides that's causing all the trouble, so it is. Have another scone, said Mummy. Yes, please, thank you, I replied, filling myself up nicely after my long bus journey. I'm going to take Tony out for a wee run in the car to show him round before dinner, Leslie said. Have another caramel square, said Mummy. Yes, please, thank you, I replied, still thoroughly enjoying the sweet Presbyterian feast. Leslie had told me that Daddy was a quiet man, like John Wayne in the movie, and so if he didn't talk much, it didn't necessarily mean that he didn't like me. He was very friendly, but once he had finished his cup of tea, he went and sat in the corner beside the radiator and began to read a Western paperback. Remember to show Tony the school now, won't you, Leslie? Mummy said, pronouncing Leslie, very polite with an extended S in Leslie. Have another chocolate biscuit. They're Marks and Spencer's, she added. Yes, please, thank you, I replied, although I was starting to feel quite full. We chatted for another while about the school up the mountain where Mummy had been his mistress for years and where they had got very good results in the 11 plus. Have another piece of pavlova, said Mummy. No, thank you. I think I'm full up now, I replied. Silence. Och, sure. Go on, you would, you could, you should, said Mummy. OK, sorry, thank you. Yes, you've persuaded me. Yes, please, I responded with the utmost courtesy. Leslie talked uninterrupted for several minutes about going to the wee school and how it got the best 11 plus results in Med Ulster, and Mummy joined in with a few stories about some of her more errant pupils. Now, have another scone, Tony, Mummy commanded. Oh, no, sorry, thank you, really, I couldn't. I'm full up now. It's all so lovely, thank you. Och, none of that. You will, you can, you should. Sure, you're a growing boy, said Mummy, clearly not prepared to take no for an answer. The food was all delicious and I enjoyed being spoilt in this way, but I had to wonder if I would be permitted to stop eating before all the plates were empty. We need to go now, said Leslie, or we'll not be back in time for dinner. Och, Leslie, Mummy tutted. The possibility of missing dinner rescued me from any further force feeding, and off we went in the Renault 5 to explore the wonders of South Derry. First of all, Leslie showed me the GAA pitch, which was a completely new experience for me, as there were no GAA pitches on the Shankill. Then Leslie pointed out a neighbour's farm across the road. That's where Albert artificially inseminates the pigs, over there, said Leslie. Excuse me, what? Blackie's very big for artificial insemination of pigs, you know, she said proudly. I was speechless. Thankfully, before I could begin to picture pigs being artificially inseminated by Albert, Leslie drove us down a narrow winding lane opposite the GAA pitch. She explained that this was where she went for long pony rides in the summer holidays, to an island called Church on a beautiful loch called Beg. I'd always thought a beg was what you put your shopping in. Leslie provided me with a running commentary. And that's a wee cottage with no electric, and the wee man always sits there and has a wee chat with you, and Mummy collects for the lifeboats round here, and everybody gives, even though it's the royal lifeboats, and we're nowhere near the sea, so we're not. And Seamus Heaney's from over there, and Daddy knows him, and they're an awful nice family, and all the swans land here from Iceland in the same fields every year, and the Orange Hall gets paint bombed all the time, and there's a brilliant garden centre in Macarap. We stopped at the edge of the loch. The scenery was breathtaking. I was fascinated by the giant dragonflies hovering over the water, which reminded me of the Doctor Who episode, The Green Death, where an enormous fly hatched from a giant maggot and squirted poisonous slime at the unit soldiers until the third Doctor swatted it away with his cape. It was so peaceful and picturesque on the shores of Loch Beg, it was hard to imagine people wanting to kill each other around here. I told Leslie that the closest thing I had to somewhere special like this, when I was growing up, was up the fields, where I picked blackberries, or up the Glen Cairn, where I caught tadpoles and the paramilitaries dumped bodies. We stopped for a while to gaze at the mysterious Church Island. Leslie pointed out rags hanging from an old tree beside the ruins of the church, where Catholic pilgrims prayed once a year in the summer when the loch was low enough to walk out to the island. It sounded magical, albeit not very Presbyterian, and Leslie's excitement about the place was infectious. After this idyllic sojourn, the Renault 5 transported us to Magherafelt. Lionel Richie sang Stuck on You on the cassette radio as we drove up a very broad street in the centre of the town. What's this street called? I asked. Broad Street, said Leslie. Country people are very straightforward, I thought. Once we had seen both the streets in Magherafelt, we moved on to a wee village called Tobermore with only one street, where Leslie pointed out her auntie's bungalow beside the Orange Hall. After that, we drove towards the Sperrin Mountains, taking a winding country road in the middle of nowhere to Kilross Primary School, where Leslie had been a pupil and Mommy was headmistress. I hadn't experienced so many country roads since playing Olivia Newton-John's greatest hits on repeat. When we returned to Balachi for dinner, the table was all set, with a tablecloth and placemats and napkins like for Christmas dinner. There was soup for starters with proper soup spoons, roast beef with roast potatoes and proper mash rather than smash, and the tastiest peas I had ever tasted. This was followed by a freshly baked chocolate cake with ice cream and fresh cream for dessert, and then a wee cup of tea and some tray bakes in the living room. As Leslie and I settled down to watch Dallas on the biggest television I had ever seen, with wooden doors and a brass lock and key on the front and everything, Mummy offered me some more of her sweet delights. Och, now, don't be saying no. Have another wee caramel square. You would, you could, you should. Okay, yes, please, thank you, I replied, wondering how I could possibly consume another crumb. I accepted further sustenance, even though at this stage it felt like the chocolate was clogging my throat. This rich cuisine was so different from my normal student diet of sausages and baked beans and a few jammy dodgers that I began to feel a little ill. I fell asleep on Leslie's shoulder while Sue Ellen was in mid-lip quiver. That night, after a subtle snog in the good room, Mommy arrived with supper, which included a slice or two or three if you weren't assertive enough to refuse, which I wasn't, of apple tart and fresh cream. Finally, I was ushered to the guest room, with thick walls, a huge double bed, and a hot water bottle. Mommy showed me to the bathroom, and I marvelled at the plush curtains, the millions of bath cubes, which I presumed were Christmas presents from all the children at the wee school, the expensive aftershaves you couldn't buy in Boots, and a posh beige bathroom suite, which included a separate shower unit and a bidet. This finally confirmed to me that Leslie was middle class, because working class houses had their showers attached to the taps in the bath, and only middle class people had bidets, though these were usually of an avocado hue. I thought it odd that middle class people needed a separate facility to wash their feet in, because working class people got by just fine washing our feet in the bath or with a face cloth in the wash hand basin. Once I had completed my ablutions, including washing my feet in the bidet for the experience rather than for hygiene purposes, I returned to the guest bedroom. The bed was festooned with more eiderdowns, cushions, and pillows than I had previously thought possible for one mattress to support. When I removed the restraining silk tassels and pulled the heavy curtains, I was amazed at how dark and quiet it was up the country, even though the house was right beside the road. As I lay in bed, swamped in soft furnishings and with my stomach fuller than it had ever been, I considered all the new experiences of my first day in Balahi. I drifted off and dreamt that I was the Doctor being chased by a caramel square, and though I had made it to the TARDIS in time and hid behind the console, an army of caramel squares descended upon me, and not even my sonic screwdriver could stop them from overwhelming me. "Breakfast!" Leslie said, popping her head around the door. She didn't enter, of course, as Joyce Huggett forbade this. I glanced at my watch. It was 8 a.m., and already I could smell streaky bacon sizzling in Mummy's gigantic frying pan downstairs. There was no food as welcome in my digestive system on a weekend than an Ulster fry. But it was very early, and it seemed like only a few hours since my last feed. "Hurry up, you! Mummy says it's almost ready." "Leslie," I heard Mummy call from downstairs, "is he never up yet?" I climbed quickly into the shower cubicle, which was somewhat like getting into a TARDIS, only to discover it was smaller on the inside and contained a beige soap on a rope, which matched the bathroom suite. "Hurry you up, it's nearly out," shouted Leslie. I decided I didn't have time to use the beige bidet and patted myself down quickly with an enormous beige towel, the same colour as the carpet and the bathroom suite. Colour coordination was clearly very important in Balahi. As I got dressed, I began to feel slightly nauseous from the combination of the sudden awakening, the early morning rush, and my huge feet the day before. What if Mommy and Daddy think I'm a lazy wee shite from the city who can't get up early to do manual labour like a proper countryman? I fretted. I dashed downstairs, almost toppling a glass cabinet of Limoges porcelain crockery en route. The kitchen was a hive of frenetic activity. Daddy, who had obviously been up since 6 a.m, building a greenhouse and fixing several cars, was assisting with the sausages, bacon and black pudding, while Mommy perfected the eggs and the soda and potato farls. Leslie was boiling the kettle and making the tea, and all three were contributing to the setting of the table, complete with a toast holder, china butter dish, butter knives, and placemats and coasters imprinted with scenes of rural 18th century England. "Sorry, can I help, please?" I inquired. "Not at all, you're the guest," Mummy smiled, cracking a brown egg into the pan. "You sit there." She directed me to the specified guest chair. Mummy clearly enjoyed the challenge of hosting, but I was somewhat overwhelmed by all the attention. "Your beige bathroom suite's lovely, so it is," I ventured. It's Sahara gold, said Leslie. I sat down amid all the activity and the delicious smells, but all of a sudden I began to feel very sick. I was surrounded by the makings of the perfect Ulster fry, a massive feast of meat and enough fried bread to empty a shelf in the Ormo mini shop. But due more than likely to my overindulgence the day before, I was feeling increasingly queasy. I feel a bit sick, I whispered to Leslie, who looked most concerned. You have to eat Mummy's fry. She's been preparing for it all week, she whispered back, our conversation masked only by the sudden sizzling of mushrooms being added to the frying pan. I started taking deep breaths in an attempt to subdue the nausea, but with every breath I inhaled the odour of fried meat and mushrooms, and by this stage the smell was sickening rather than appetising. Leslie observed me closely, aware of the potential disaster unfolding in her kitchen. My face had turned a whiter shade of pale, and she quickly realised that an intervention was going to be necessary. Tony's not feeling well, she said, much to my relief. Mommy looked over her bifocals with a mixture of shock and disappointment as the frying fat spat at me from beneath the eggs. Och, sure, you're all right now. You just need a good fry and you'll be fine. Sorry, I think I need to lie down, I confessed. Then I'll be all right, if that's okay. Thanks for the fry, please. Sorry. Mommy, Daddy, and Leslie cast glances at each other from their various workstations across the kitchen. I was embarrassed. If I had farted explosively at the kitchen table, it could not have been worse. Mommy looked hurt, as if her cooking was so horrible it was making me sick. Leslie looked concerned for Mommy, and Daddy went outside for a smoke. Sure, you would, you could, you should. Just try a wee plate, Mommy persisted, and she proceeded to set a plate of sausage, bacon, and egg in front of me. Normally the smell would have overwhelmed my taste buds, but in my current condition it only made me retch. If I didn't move quickly, I was going to be sick all over the kitchen table, and there would be undigested sweet corn and diced carrots all over the antique placemats depicting scenes of pastoral England. Sorry, excuse me, please, thank you, I replied, left the table and darted upstairs to the bathroom. As I departed, I caught a glimpse of the shocked expression on Mummy's face, and I could tell that Leslie was embarrassed to have a boyfriend who was made sick by her Mummy's Ulster fry. I made it into the bathroom just in time. I fell to my knees on the brown shag pile carpet, and I boked into the beige bidet. I boked again and again, completely evacuating the richness of the previous day's cuisine from my convulsing stomach. Such was the volume of my vomiting that Leslie shouted upstairs, "Are you all right? It can't be that bad." I had always been a noisy boker, but this was not a problem in the privacy of my own home. But in my girlfriend's house, on my first visit to meet her parents, on the first offer of her mother's monumental Ulster fry, it was definitely adding insult to injury to be vomiting so loudly into their beige bidet. After a few minutes of cold sweat and further evacuations, I began to feel well enough to start cleaning up. "I'm all right now," I said to Leslie through the locked bathroom door, meticulously removing all traces of boke from the beige bidet, so Mommy wouldn't get any between her toes the next time that she used it. "I just need to lie down for a wee minute." When I emerged from the bathroom, Leslie mopped my brow like a nurse. It seemed like she still cared for me, even though I was in utter embarrassment. I lay down for 15 minutes, and eventually I felt well enough to return to the crestfallen kitchen scene, where I slowly consumed a mini Ulster fry under Mommy's watchful eye. Sorry, that was lovely, thank you, I said, as I cautiously set my knife and fork down vertically across the plate in a polite but firm indication that I could eat no more. Sure, you need a nice cup of tea to calm your stomach now, said Mummy. Sorry, thank you, I'm all, I attempted, but the cup was poured and set before me, and to my surprise, it did ease my nausea, though I did have to firmly decline the offer of 2 Rice Krispie buns and a slice of fruitcake from Diddy's Bakery in Castle Dawson, even though it was the best fruitcake in mid-Ulster and I was a growing boy and all. Later that day, as Leslie gave me a lift back to the bus stop, we discussed the success of my first meeting with her family. By all accounts, everyone thought I was a lovely fella, although the breakfast table incident had certainly raised eyebrows. You'd better not be sick the next time, said Leslie. I took this as her way of saying that her family liked me and accepted me because there would be a next time, on the condition that it would be a vomit-free visit. As we waited at the bus stop, Leslie drew back from a goodbye kiss, leading me to fear that I had let her down and nobody liked me and she was going to chuck me. Reading the concern on my face, she explained, I'm not kissing a bake that's just booked. Have you got your return ticket? She asked. I searched in my pockets and found only a 50p, a stick of Wrigley's and a Greenpeace badge. You were supposed to buy a return ticket, you idiot, said my love. But I've no money left, I explained. Typical, said Leslie. Oh, that's so middle class, I retorted. Change the record, she shouted. Lionel Richie was singing Dancing on the Ceiling on the cassette radio. Well, I've no money with me either, Leslie said. We'll have to go back to the house and borrow your bus fare from Mummy. She was raging. I'm sorry, I said. Wee lad, sighed Leslie. We returned to the house in Balachi. Fortunately, Daddy was not home, having escaped to the pub after doing all the dishes. I was too sheepish to leave the car, so Leslie made a brief visit to the kitchen to obtain the required finances. When Mummy came to the back door, she appeared to be laughing, as if she was taking my silly mistake in a good-natured manner. But what if she thought I was irresponsible with money? This, combined with my weak stomach, might just be enough of a reason for Leslie's parents to deem me an unsuitable suitor. Leslie was kind and even gave me a kiss on the cheek when she left me back to the bus stop. It seemed as if my mistakes might be forgiven. But what if she thought I was nothing but an embarrassment, and she couldn't even bring home to her parents, and decided to chuck me for some boy from Ballymoney with an XR3? I was insecure, so it was. So there you are. That's my first visit to Balachi. So let's say hello. Let's see what you're saying. Before I go, let me see. Where did we get to? That's a fun chapter, says Mark McCauley. I'm full up, so I am, says Michael McKinley. No, says Helen Stewart. Sweating bullets, Anne says. Oh no, says Norma. Laughing so much, Sadie. Haha. The funniest chapter yet, says Davy. Epic, says Norma. Brilliant. Thanks again, Tony. Great. Oh, I'm glad you all enjoyed that tonight. So I'll be back tomorrow night again with the next chapter. Brilliant. Thanks, says Nigel McComb. Thanks, Nigel. I'll be back again for the next chapter of All Grown Up, same time tomorrow night. Until then, wherever you are, stay safe and stay well and stay positive.